When a sequel to an ancient video game is suddenly announced, it's not always clear what to expect from it. If it's Return to Monkey Island, everything is more or less obvious, because even today old quests can be played with pleasure thanks to cool puzzles and great humor, but the situation with games like Flashback is more complicated. The first part was released almost 30 years ago, and in the era it impressed a lot. Excellent rotoscopic animation, unusual gameplay, intriguing plot. Today it's no surprise to anyone. Graphically games have leaped far ahead, and the stories they tell are being honored with awards at major festivals. In the case of Flashback 2, they couldn't come up with a reason for the series to be talked about again. The first Flashback was about an intelligent agent named Conrad, who, after learning about the existence of alien morphs, decided to be reassured and recorded a message for himself in case he was kidnapped by aliens. He is indeed kidnapped and his memory is erased, but the hero managed to escape. His ship crashes and he goes to assume Washington in search of his comrade Len. Funny enough, the sequel tells almost the same story. Conrad was sitting in the shuttle, which was going to the Earth, but the ship crashed and Conrad failed to uncover the alien plot, and of course he's looking for Lan again. It turns out to be a sequel or reboot or whatever. Here they even decide to repeat the structure of the game. That is, the first Flashback protagonist fulfilled orders to earn money and buy false documents. That here he does the same thing in the first hour of the game. It's a very strange approach, turning the sequel into a mishmash of old and new ideas. When a character from the last game appears on the screen, it's hard to tell if it's a cameo that should please the grey-haired fans of the original, or the idea was completely different and this character is just needed for the story. Overloading the game with dialogues is also tiresome. Here the developers of the sequel were inspired not by Flashback, but its remake from Ubisoft, released 20 years later. There were more video clips and the characters were more talkative. But when dialogues are mediocre, and because of the plot mess, they are also boring to read. They don't arouse any interest, especially annoying in Conrad's desire to comment on his own actions or hints to direct the player to the right object. It's impossible to get confused. Why is it? The plot is disappointing. But what about the gameplay? And it's even worse. From 2D to developers moved to 3D.5. The camera still can be rotated or titled, but you can move around the location more freely. Go around the shoulders, go down the stairs and so on. In general, this change does not cause problems, but there's a situation in which you can't see where exactly the passage to the next room is located, and you have to hug the walls in search of the door. Plus, it's not always clear where a character can walk in and where he'll be met in the invisible wall, but these are still trifles. The combat system causes much more complaints. In Corvus arsenal there's a pistol with infinite supply of ammo and a clip for 20 bullets. When the clip is almost empty and you try to reload using the button, it doesn't always work. Shooting is always crooked. You just tilt the stick towards the enemy and hope that the game will help you hit him with a shoot. But there are no visual cues here. When you encounter flying enemies, it's hard to know if you're hitting them at all. They are also the most survivable as some of them replenish their health. If you can somehow put up with all this, then the game has something to surprise you in indoor shootouts. As soon as one of the enemies is near Conrad, when you press the shot button, the protagonist will hit the enemy in close combat instead of shooting, and the animation is so slow, and the switch back to the gun is so delayed that it's easy to lose half of your lives in such situation. That's why in batteries with several opponents, you don't focus on shooting but try and run away. God forbid someone will come closer. And the authors obviously realized how bad the shootouts are here. That's why health kits fall out everywhere. Enemies leave them in large quantities, and they are scattered on the levels. Unfortunately, most of the gameplay in the story levels is limited to bad shootouts. If in the first Flashback they were successful combined with good puzzles, then there is a very little room for puzzles. We can only mention terminating hacking. where you participate in the same minigame. On the miss, you need to lead one symbol to another, such simplified sports, which before that were million games. But even such a simple element managed to do after sleeves. The interface of terminals is orange, the tracks are also orange, and in some cases it also merged into a mess, in which it's very difficult to make it out anything. As a result, the gameplay is instantly boring. It looks like a game from 20 years ago with modern graphics. That's why enemies appear out of thin air, the interface is constantly glitchy, and close with the main character, lines can appear right on the loading screen. Not to mention more strange flaws like the impossibility to switch between buttons in the menu with the help of the crossbar. I am picky because there are so many such annoying little things here that together they add up to big monte of problems. That is, if you don't count the ridiculous attempts to strange gameplay. In the first version there are several areas between which you must constantly move, both to fulfill orders and to meet story character, and moving around isn't done by pressing a single button, as is done in normal games. No, you literally get on bike and ride to the desired neighborhood, and you ride on the looped road, where you dodge carts to the music that reminds you at the Mass Effect menu melody, and nothing else happens at all. You don't even need to dodge. In fact, if you crash, you will go straight on and won't lose any health or anything else. Further such moments are less frequent, but there are enough other absurdities. For example, you met a character and saved him. Now you need to take him to a safe place. You run to the elevator or door. Try to press the button, but nothing happens. It turns out that the components move slower than a turtle, and sometimes get stuck in object. You need to get back to him and literally accompany him, otherwise you will lose even more time. Unfortunately, you will find yourself in such situation more than once and more than twice, and at the same moment Flashback 2 wants to turn off at least until it releases patches. They won't fix everything, but at least something can make it better. It is desirable to wait for patches, and because of the huge number of bugs that prevents you from passing the game, it's very easy to get stuck in some objects or fall through the ground, and a couple of times Conrad stopped responding to button presses after loading a checkpoint. He just stood still. In such situation, you can use an old save. The game creates several of them in different slots, but usually it leads to loss of several minutes of progress. And in games like this, you don't want to lose progress, otherwise you will spend more time in them than they deserve. Flashback 2 turns out to be completely disaster by all parameters. The story is bad, and the gameplay is poor, and the prohibitive number of bugs, both visual and gameplay, puts the final nail in its coffin. It's hard to understand why the sequel exists at all, and what the developers want to say. Against its background, the first part looks like more playable, optimized and interesting. In fact, Flashback already had a sequel, Fade to Black. But it's rarely remembered. This same misunderstanding will be forgotten before the end of the year. Thank you for watching.